Welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to finish the rest of the options that are inside the Bevel modifier and show you some other cool stuff. So let's go ahead and get started. And another cool thing you can do is profile. So if we cut down this little profile twiddle, you can change the profile, to go inward or to go, even more outward. I don't know why you'd want that. Maybe you want little bumps on the corners, but it's really cool if you wanted to invert your bevels and maybe make them a little smoother. Turn my wireframes off so you can kind of see. So even that looks pretty awesome. Just to give some details and some style to our simple design here. I'll just set that back to 0.5, and you can also go to custom and create custom profiles of your bevel, just like we did with the tool, but make your own little bevel shapes here, which is very fun. And looky there, we've got some crazy bevels just like that. And they've also got presets right here, so you could do support loops. Maybe you want to invert that. You could do some molding, and we're not getting the exact shape because we don't have enough segments. So it's kind of like there's not enough geometry. So just increase the segments, and that's going to increase the amount of detail that these profiles can do. And you can also use this little arrow right here, this little crisscross, and that will invert the line shape. So say if you want it to be opposite, you can just flip-flop it, or we can do crown molding. It looks pretty cool. There we go. So that's like some crown molding, just some quick details that you can add. Or hey, you could even do steps. And this one I like a lot. It's very cool. You do have to crank it up to get some nice little details. But if you had like a resin printer, that would look very cool. So feel free to play around with those and add custom bevels to any of your edges. And so I'm just going to go back to normal, and let's go to the next drop down, which is geometry. So for the midder, outer, and inner, that's just going to change the inside kind of arc shapes inside of your geometry. Let me see if I can give you an example here. So if we take a face, so select any face on your design here and just hit I to inset it, and then maybe E just to bring it in a little bit, and then go into your overlays and turn on your wireframes. So we'll kind of get an idea of what's going on here. So if we decrease this, maybe 12, we'll do 12. So for the midder, outer, and inner, it's essentially doing the inner and outer parts of your bevel. So if we changed it from sharp to patch, it's going to change the designs of your little arcs here. So notice the arc right here, right there. So that's for the inner. We could do sharp, that's going to be more sharp, or we could do arc, and that's going to be more curved. I don't really mess with this too much, but just so you know kind of what it can do. And let's put that back on sharp. And I'm not getting the sharp too much on this. See if we can scale it down a little bit. Let's do patch. So I'm not really seeing the outer one, but essentially what it will do is kind of just change the geometry pattern in the corners of your geometry. So I'm just going to leave those both on sharp. And for grid fill, this is like your corner. So you could do cut off, and it's just going to cut off your corners. So what Blender is trying to do is just trying to morph and merge the geometry onto these edges here. But if you don't want them, you can just cut them off. So I don't really use that very often, but you do have that option if that sparks some ideas for you. And again, we've already talked about clamp overlap. And next we have loop slide, and loop slide will try to help you if you have an edge that's beveled meeting one that is not beveled. And we'll just try and keep them a little more even. And then next we have shading, and we're not going to go too much into this because this is not really for hard surface modeling that much, but you can do some cool things with material indexing here. So say if we went to our material and added another one, we'll just have a like a white material. Then if you go to your shading tab and increase your index anything more than 0, it will take your second color It's essentially like a slot. So the this may be 1, and this is your second color, and so it's referencing this this 1 slot. So if this is 0, this is 1, and adding some colors to your bevels. So I don't really use that, but maybe you need it for visual, just to kind of see what's happening. But that's what that does. So I'm going to put that back to -1, and that's pretty much everything inside the bevel modifier. You can also do vertices. I kind of missed this one up here, but say if you just wanted the vertices to be beveled, you can do the same thing with just the vertices. I don't really use that too often, but it could give you a desired look that you're going for. So I'm just going to keep it on edges. And for these, I may delete this. I just was trying to show you the emitter, so I'm going to do Control Plus and just select some of those faces there. See if I can turn off the bevel to kind of show you. So I've just got this one and these selected, and then I'm going to hit X and dissolve the faces. And I may even just dissolve this one too. And so I'm just going to kind of get this back to normal here. So I'll dissolve those faces. Now we're back to where we were. So now we've got our bevel. Let's keep going. I want to add in the keychain hole right here and the penny slot, so we can take a coin of your choice and slide it on in. So let's go back into object mode. Make sure you're on your flexible design, and I'm going to bring in a reference image just so you can kind of see the penny. So we'll do Shift A. Let's bring in an image or reference, and we've got the penny here. We've got it from the front and the side. So we'll just bring in this one. Bring it over here, scale it up, maybe rotate it 90 degrees. And so the penny is measured with the calipers at about 19 millimeters. So all we're going to do is create a new cylinder. So we'll do mesh and cylinder, and the radius we want 19, so we'll do 19 divided by 2, and I actually want it a little bit bigger, so we'll do like 19.5 divided by 2, and that's going to give us the radius of the penny. And for the depth, the penny is actually about 1 millimeter thick, but I'm just going to do maybe like 1.5 for the depth. And we could probably do a little bit more than that, just depending on your computer, or depending on how well your printer prints, dimensional accuracies. But that is good for now. I'm going to turn off the cap so we can kind of see here. And now we've got our penny. So I'm going to double click on this. Let's just call it penny, because that's what it is. And we'll hit G and Y and just slide that into our little bottle opener here. And I'm going to turn back our cap on and our reference image and go to our side, so we can kind of get an idea of where we need to place this penny. So let's do G and just bring it on down. Maybe let's go in somewhere in there. So we don't want it touching the bottle, because then it may not, bang up against it too much. So just right in that little sweet spot. So we have a nice bit of gap in between, and that should be enough to pop that cap off. I may go just a little bit more, and there we go. So now we've got a space for our penny, but we need to actually subtract the penny. So what I'm going to do is just make sure you have your penny selected, and we'll do Shift D. So now we've got a duplicate, and while you're hovering it around, just hit Escape, and that's going to leave it right on top of the first penny. So we can call this one, the duplicate. We can rename it like penny cut, anything that lets your mind know that this is going to be the subtractive penny. So we'll take that one and then shift click on our bottle opener and do Control minus to do the bull tool. And there we go. So now if we move this penny out, notice already I'm seeing that, the penny comes out okay, but it's not going to be able to go in because it's hitting the wall right here. So we need to actually bring this, maybe this whole wall back. So maybe a better way to do this, instead of duplicating the penny, maybe we just create a skinny little box that will cut that out. That way we don't have to worry about the rounded edges, because let me show you in see-through mode. If we put the penny in, we've subtracted it way out here. Right here. So, you know, we need the penny to set in here, but it's not going to, these little walls right here are going to block the penny from being able to slide in. So instead of doing that, let's use a little box to cut this out. So I'm going to bring everything back, go into Eevee mode again, and let's just delete that duplicate. So these are just some of the things you may have to do when you're designing sometimes. So now we can take our penny and see how the origin point is right there in the center. We can do Shift S and take the cursor to the selected. So now it's right in the center. And if we create a new cube, we can make the cube, you know, like 19 point, maybe, let's see, the penny was 19.5, so maybe a little bit larger, like 19.75, somewhere in there. And we can always adjust this. And we need the height of it to be 1. So we'll do, just for the Z, just type 1. And there we go. So we've got a slightly larger box, and it's needs to be a little taller actually. So the penny was 1 millimeter, we can do 1.5. And that should give us enough gap for the penny to slide in. And let's reset our scales. I'm just going to do Control A and reset the scale, and that will keep everything nice and even on the scale ratios. And now we can just make sure you still have your cube selected. We can even call this the penny cube. Penny cube, like that. And just make sure you have the penny cube selected, then shift click on your bottle opener and Control minus, and looky there, we've got a little slot for our penny. And so let's turn off our reference image just for a second. And maybe this one too. That's our penny reference image. And so now if we go to the side, we should be able to slide our penny in, push it in there, and then have it wedged in enough to where it will slide in. So if we go to top view and go into Z and hit wireframe, maybe even go to see-through mode, take our penny. Notice our penny is going to fit right up in there. And we may need it to be just ever so slightly larger. So maybe we'll take the penny cube and scale on the X just a little bit, just so we have a little bit more wiggle room around the edge of our penny right there. Because sometimes when you 3D print things, you know, the plastic oozes, or you know, sometimes it's just not exactly perfect. So it's good to give yourself some room, and we can always go back and adjust this. But right now I'm pretty happy with that. Let's turn on our reference image here and go to the side. That looks pretty cool. So I'm pretty happy with that, but the only thing we're missing is the little hole here. So we'll take our bottle opener and maybe turn off the reference image. And I'm gonna go to top view and turn on snapping and do absolute grid snap. And if we shift right click, the 3D cursor will snap to the grid here. And I just want it right in the center of this object here. And now since we've put the 3D cursor there, it's actually going to create the cylinder right there. So we'll just do Shift A and create a new cylinder. And this is going to be our keyhole. And most keyholes are about 5 millimeters, you know, in diameter. So we'll just put 5 divided by 2. And that may be a little small, so I'll do 7 divided by 2. You know, however large you want your diameter to be. I may just do 3. So we have a radius of 3, diameter of 6 millimeters, and the depth we can just do like 10. And there we go. So now we can use this to cut a hole. So we can do G and Z and just chop out a hole. So you just want to make sure that the cylinder is going through both sides of your design here, and then we'll click on the cylinder and shift click on the bottle opener and do Control minus, and there we go. Simple as that. We've got a nice little keychain cut out, And it may be a little too close to the edge here, it may break. So maybe give yourself just a little bit more, a little bit more space there. And turn your snapping off so you can get, nitty gritty in there. So that looks pretty good. And there we go. We've got a simple bottle opener. So one thing that I would like to do is maybe play with some of my beveling here. So I'm just going to take my object into edit mode. Maybe I'm just going to click everything and add it all to my group here. Let's call this bevel group. And let's assign all these. So that's looking pretty good, but I think it looks kind of like a shark. So I think it'd be funny to add maybe a little shark's fin here. So maybe we'll grab this little plane here, inset it a little bit, maybe scale it on the Y, scale it on the X, and maybe take this guy here in GG, and just slide it up like that, and take this plane and extrude a little shark fin. Just push it back a little bit. So that's looking pretty cool. So now it's essentially like a little shark. Maybe even shrink that down a little bit more. So it's an actual shark fin. And there we go. We've got a shark bottle opener that can be 3D printed. So you don't have to put the shark fin on there if you don't want to. Notice that when I made this face smaller, it actually messed with the bevel because the surface area of that plane got smaller and smaller. Notice as I drag it, the smaller it gets, the tighter and tighter and tighter our bevel gets. So one thing we could do is just remove that from our bevel group here. Maybe even these. Let's see what we get here. Let's remove those. And this one. So not doing much. Let's make sure we have our group is broken. So we'll do bevel group. And there we go. So, now we still get the nice bevel on the body of the shark, but the fin is sharp. And now we can take that one and scale it down. Get it pretty thin. Maybe even drag it back a little bit. And there we go. I'm happy with that. So let's go ahead and get it ready for printing. So let's make sure you have your bottle opener. We don't need this reference image, so I'll just delete that. And we can parent the penny cube, that's the cutter cube, to the penny. Just hold shift and drop that inside of the penny. And then we've got our cylinder, which is our keyhole. So we can just call this keyhole. And that can be parented to the bottle opener. And we have our penny, which can be parented to the bottle opener. And we have our cap, which can just be by itself. So now if we move our bottle opener, everything will stay together like a little family. So if you are happy with your design, maybe move this and maybe hide it just for a second, just so we can inspect our little hole there. That looks pretty good. And let's go into our object mode here and do 3D print toolbox, check all. And looks like everything's zeroed out. That's the way we like to see it. And let's go to export. And then I just have a little STLs folder here and export. And now we can just bring in our bottle opener. That looks pretty good, but I'm not seeing the penny hole right there. So let's go back to our design and make sure it's still there. And looky there. Oh, there it is. So for some reason, our penny hole is not showing up, and it's inside of here. So let's just take our penny, move it slightly up just a little bit, and then let's re-export. Sometimes maybe with the bevel, it some of the the geometry. If it's overlapping too closely, sometimes it won't boolean correctly. So we'll just rewrite over that, bring it back in. And there we go. So now we've got a little hole for our penny and our keychain hole and our little shark fin. So I may just 3D print this on the side here. So we'll take our little guy here, flip him over, and we may need some supports on this. So we'll just do some a right click and do support enforcer box. And let's just put some supports around this little fin here. Somewhere in there. And we can do for supports, support forcers only. 0.3 is good. And let's see, maybe no raft. We'll just print this straight on the platform. Slice it up. And there we go. So now we can, we'll just print this on the side here. And you may have to do some more infill because it's going to have a lot of pressure on this penny here. And let's go ahead and print that thing.